can you tell the jury what you do for a living?
I am employed as a criminalist with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation, Criminalistics Laboratory.
And can you unpack that, just explain what a criminalist is and what your employment and experience to be in this position?
As a criminalist at the Iowa DCI Crime Lab, you analyze evidence brought to you by law enforcement, and you will perform your analyses and generate reports on your findings of those analyses. As part of being a criminalist at the laboratory, you usually have a 4-year degree in a specific scientific field like chemistry, physics, and or biology. With that in mind, you have that 4-year degree and other training that might be acceptable for different positions within that laboratory. I'm currently employed within the firearm and tool mark examination section. And with that, I have a 4-year degree in chemistry chemistry and forensic science from Simpson College of Indianola, Iowa.
How long have you been employed by the DCI Crime Lab?
Just a little bit under 15 years. It'll be 15 years in September.
Okay. And so during the course, you said you now work in the firearms department. Have you worked in different departments within the crime lab?
Yes, I have. I first started out in the laboratory as an evidence technician. Prior to that, I was an intern in toxicology, but that wasn't a paid position. But I was in the evidence room as an evidence technician. From there, I became a criminalist in the drug section. And then after that, I was now in firearms and tool marks since October of 2022.
As part of your job before, you talked about evidence technician. Does that involve also crime scene investigation?
Yes, as part of being a criminalist at the laboratory, you can volunteer to be part of the crime scene response teams there.
Can you tell the jury what that means?
As part of being in the crime scene response team, you're allotted certain weeks in the year where you're on call 24 hours a day to respond to any investigations that are required with your expertise in crime scene investigation. The part of being in the crime scene teams is that you'll receive training on the documentation and preservation of evidence at scenes. And from there, as part of your normal duties, you'll have your expertise in the laboratory, but then you'll also be part of the crime scene team on a rotation.
Does that involve forensic evidence collection?
Yes, it does.
And part of that involves chain of custody, collecting the evidence, taking it back to the lab.
Correct.
Were you involved sometimes in June 18th of 2021 in the case that brings us to this court today?
Yes, I was.
What was the nature of your involvement?
It was requested by the SAC at the time to respond to a death investigation there and to provide crime scene investigation.
So basically what you've talked about was your involvement then documenting, collecting, and preserving the evidence for further testing and for further testimony as you are in court here today.
Yes.
So you've described how you became involved. Did you have a brief briefing of what you will be doing as you go there and what the nature of the case looked like?
Yes, so on an initial call out from the SAC, we were asked to head to the Tama County Sheriff's Department for initial briefing on the details of the case.
Did you then proceed to the property in question where you're going to do your investigations at?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the address that you went to?
The address we were told was 1846 or 1846 K Avenue, Traer, Iowa.
Can you describe the property and your initial observations as you got to the property?
The property itself consisted of a main residence with an attached garage as well as various outbuildings there too. A garden shed near a garden. There was a play area for children. There was also a shed that contained a lot of recreational items as well as two other garages, a gray garage and a red garage that contained vehicles or recreational vehicles.
When you go to a property to do an examination, are there certain standards or procedures that you use or that you apply in working a crime scene?
Yes, as part of my training, there is a very specific process that there is a process in which we will follow to document and then to preserve that evidence and collect that evidence, preserve that evidence, and then follow the chain of custodies with those. Those are part of our training as well as listed within our SOPs within the laboratory.
What are some of the methods or training that you use?
Say that again, please.
What are some of the methods or training process that you use?
Some of the methods that we use, are you asking in documenting? Or?
Yes.
Okay. With crime scene documentation, we're going to be using photography. We'll even take video. We will also then even make sketches of those scenes as well. We also use a 3D measuring device called a Faro scanner, which will do a 3D virtual scan of that scene and also collect measurements of that scene that we can use later on.
Did you employ some of those methods in this particular case?
Yes, those methods that I mentioned were used in this case.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury more briefly what a Faro is?
Faro is just a metrology device or a measuring device that will bounce lasers around a room and measure the distances that those lasers have reflected off of surfaces. And with the technology and the software they have, they're able to calculate those distances, and then it provides a 3D virtual representation of that scene.
You talked about taking pictures to document the scene. Did you do that in this particular case?
Yes.
And have you been able to review those pictures that you took before your testimony today?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, at this point, with the stipulation of the parties, the state will admit what's been marked as State Exhibit 118 to 155, then 156A, 157, 158A, 159 through 167, 168A, 169 through 193, and 302.
Just make sure I got those numbers correct. 118 through 155, 156A, 157, 158A, 159 through 167, 168A, 169 through 193, and 302.
That is correct.
And is there any objection by the defendant?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then I'm not going to repeat them all again, but all the exhibits that I just mentioned are now admitted. And are you looking to publish these?
That is correct. And may I approach to...
You may, and you don't need to ask again with this witness.
It might help you to use those, that's fine, but you have copy on the screen in front of you.
Yeah, and you can tilt that screen. If it helps. You should be able to tilt that screen. So, there you go.
Beginning with 118, can you tell us what we see on that exhibit?
Yes, this is a photograph of the east side of the main residence at 1846 K Avenue.
So what you documented, what time did you arrive at this residence?
At the residence, a little past noon. I can't remember the exact time right off the top of my head.
Fair enough to say that at that point, your department had been called in, and so the scene had been secured for you, your department to come and do the investigation?
Yes.
So there was no one at the residence?
There was law enforcement personnel on the property, but not inside of the residence.
Were there any children or any other person who was living at that residence?
At that time, there was only law enforcement personnel on scene.
Okay. You talked about being kind of given information or told a little bit of what to expect when you get to the residence. Is that what happens as standard practice?
Yes, those were in the initial details at the briefing at Tama County Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Do you rely on what you're given 100%?
No, not as a scientist, and when I'm given those details, I'm actually want to be skeptical of them. I'm going to be walking into scene as if none of those details really matter, but it does give us an idea of what could be seen as evidence at that scene. Otherwise, I'm looking to see what's consistent with details, what's inconsistent with details, and just looking to find any evidence that would help answer questions arising in this matter.
Go to State 119. What do we see on 119?
This is a door that is the entrance to the attached garage on the main residence. This is the only, besides the garage door itself, this is the other way to access that garage.
What of significance did you notice about this door?
At the time, it was shut, and also that it has a key lock as well as a keypad lock for a code too.
And will you describe that as an electronic keypad?
Yes.
What do we see on State 120?
Again, this is another view of the east side of the residence, showing the entrance into the kitchen, or the what I term the mudroom area, the initial entryway, as well as another exterior door to the south living room and the dining area or porch area on the east side of that residence.
If you can you describe to the jury, we see at least outlines of 3 doors. Can you tell the jury what those 3 doors you determine them to be?
Yes. Is it all right if I use a laser pointer? I have one on me to be able to point up there. Is that okay?
That's fine if it works.
So the question was about the entrances into that residence?
Yes.
Okay. So what was previously seen over here was the garage door entrance here. This is the only way to get into the garage other than that garage door being open. This right here is one of the other entryways into the residence itself. This would give access to the residence through the southern living room area, and this would give access to the mudroom, which is right next to that kitchen, and the basement access as well.
And
these are the 2 that work into the residence there, and this door would be the one that only goes into that attached garage.
Okay, and so from your testimony, to get into the house, into this residence, you have to use one of those 2 doors, not the garage door, correct?
Correct. The attached garage does not have access into the main residence.
What do we see on 121? Is that just more isolating the front living room door?
Yes, it's just a closer view of the living room door, as well as the porch that is there, the landing, and the steps there to that dining area.
When you came, was that landing, was that door, that landing gate open?
Yes, when we were there on scene, that gate was open.
What do we see on 122?
Another view of that door on the south living room door, just from the east side of the residence there.
Now, can you describe for the jury 121 and 122? Are those steps fairly short steps, pretty small and confined area?
I would say for somebody like my size, and like if I have size 10 and a half, 11 feet, that yes, they're smaller steps than I would usually step on, but I can't give you an exact representation of that. Other than that, yes, it is a smaller area that has been fenced in with those gates there.
What do we see on this exhibit?
This would be the entrance to the mudroom, which then gives access to the kitchen on the east side of the residence.
What do we see on State Exhibit 124?
That is the same entry with the door open that I just previously mentioned.
Okay. So that's now with the door open.
That is with the door open now.
And when you came, was this door open or closed?
When I was there processing the scene with my partner, that door was closed.
What do you see in 125?
That would be the latches on the door frame to that same previously mentioned door, the door that gives access to the mudroom and kitchen area.
Why did you take this picture?
At the time, when I'm processing a scene, I'm keeping in mind the details of the case, but I'm also being skeptical of those very details. I'm looking to see if this was a completely unknown subject that came to the residents, what would be the reasons why, and if they had to get access to this place, there would be possibly signs of forced entry is one of my thought processes when looking at this scene. This is just a photograph of the latches that I had observed, and there appeared to be no signs of forced entry or tool marks on them that would suggest somebody's trying to break into those door.
Just a close-up of that?
Yes, just a close-up of the same latches.
That's 126?
Let me double check here. Yes, that'd be State's Exhibit 126.
What does the jury see in Exhibit 127?
That is a view of the kitchen from the southeast corner, just inside of that door that we have just previously looked at.
Anything moved in the kitchen that was alarming or interesting to you, or it seemed just a normal kitchen at a farmhouse?
Yes, it appears to be just a normal kitchen with items from the family, food items, dishes, cookware, whatever is in a normal kitchen. There's some cash that I noticed that was left on the countertop here as well, and also a tablet on the kitchen table there that was left there. Those things have appeared to have just been there when I was at the scene, and nothing has. It's just a photograph of where they are as it is at this point.
What do we see on 128?
This would be a view from the, pardon me while I get my directions straight and just think through it here, but the northwest corner of the kitchen, looking towards the south to the entrance to the central foyer or sewing room area as we called it. And by we, I mean my partner and I as we defined it at the time.
So when you did this, you were with someone else?
Yes.
What was that person's name?
It is evidence technician Melissa Osmek.
What do we see on State Exhibit 129?
So that is a view of the central hall or the sewing room area that has access to the upstairs as well as to the bathroom and some other bedrooms. This is looking towards the south wall of that area.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted already as 313, State Exhibit 313, which will be the floor plan of this building. With that, if you can also help that, if that can help with your testimony to explain.
Okay.
Are you able to see that?
Yes, I am.
So when you're talking about 129, if you look at the floor plan, can you just use your pointer to show the jury what you're talking about, or where that picture we're seeing?
Yes. So if this is the hallway or the central area, I am taking the picture from here facing this direction.
Okay. And so there's a bedroom that you will have to pass to get to where you're taking that picture, correct?
The bathroom is actually, if I go to the photo, it would be up here. That's the access to the bathroom, which would be there on the diagram.
Okay. What do we see on State Exhibit 130?
So this is another view of that hallway area as defined on that diagram. It's looking at the bathroom access. So if I'm pointing here, I would be photographing from this corner facing generally this direction, showing the bathroom entrance as well as the previous entrance that I took the photo at.
Do we see some staircase going up?
Yes.
Okay. And fair enough to say the staircase leads to at least a bedroom upstairs.
Yes, there are 2 bedrooms upstairs.
What do we have on State Exhibit 131?
Again, this is another view of that central hallway area. And it would be from approximately this area facing towards the access to these two bedrooms here.
Skip to 132. Is that just a picture of the stairway going up?
Yes, that's just a picture looking up the stairway from that hallway area.
What about 133?
This is a photograph from just outside the entrance to the master bedroom, which would be bedroom 1 here.
134?
134 is just inside of that master bedroom, just inside the door, facing towards the west end of that, and looking at the contents of that bed.
What about State Exhibit 135?
So that's another photograph inside of the master bedroom, and that is taken from the southeast corner of that bedroom, looking towards this area over here.
Do you know what is on the bed?
Yes, so there's a safe, an open safe on the bed, as well as some other electronic items.
And when you talk of electronic items, you're talking about iPads or Kindles?
Yes, tablets of some sort.
Fair to say 136 is just another view from the bedroom with what you've testified to?
Yes, and this has got another view of that safe in the corner, in the bottom right corner of that photo, as well as it's facing towards the south end of that master bedroom.
What we see on States 137?
This is a photograph of the living room access to the south living room from essentially the master bedroom entrance right here.
So to access this living room, you'll have to pass directly in front of the master bedroom.
If you're coming from the kitchen and hallway area,
Yes.
yes, you would have to get access to the living room. You would pass the bedrooms and the bathrooms and the hallway area.
What do we see on 138?
This is just another view of the access to the living room, just facing towards the south, showing some of the furniture items at the west end of that living room.
What about 139?
This is a photograph from approximately the southwest corner of the living room, facing towards this area here on the living room, which would be the northeastern direction of the living room.
You talked about a Pharaoh that you used. When you use that Pharaoh, you're able to take pictures and make a diagram out of it?
Of the data from the Pharaoh?
Yes.
Yes, there's different software that is able to produce different representations of that scene using that equipment.
Were you able to do that in this particular case?
Yes, a coworker of mine was able to generate an aerial view of this crime scene.
Okay. And was that one produced to help your testimony in this particular case?
I'm sorry, say that first part again?
Do we have one that you got to help with your testimony in this particular case?
Yes.
By agreement of the parties, the state will move to admit what's been marked as State Exhibit 305.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. State's Exhibit 305 is admitted.
I will ask for copy.
You may.
Mr. Gladfelter, I know it's a little dark in this courtroom. Are you able to see the Pharaoh from where you are?
Yes, I can.
Is that more of a higher view of, can you describe what we are seeing in the Pharaoh?
Yes, what you're seeing is what we call more of an orthogonal view, which is like perpendicular to the aerial view of that crime scene. This has been generated by one of my coworkers to be able to view everything kind of in relation as it was at that scene.
Now, when you got there, you find Brian Cooper on the floor.
Yes, as seen on that diagram and as well as the photographs, that's the way he was found. The way that we had viewed him at the time that we were there.
Was there a briefing that you understood that he had been moved to the floor?
Yes, that was a detail that was mentioned to us, was that he had been moved from the recliner that is in the living room area.
So by the time you arrive at around 12 o'clock or later in the day, he's still in the house but just been moved from the recliner. You had an understanding that he was found initially on the recliner, correct?
Yes, that was what was told to me at the initial briefing on the details of the case, is that he was found in the recliner and that they had since moved him off the recliner. And when I arrived on scene, that's exactly as they had mentioned.
With the Pharaoh, can you just explain to the jury and just briefly walk us through what they will be able to see with it as they look at it?
As who looked?
As the jury looks at the Pharaoh,
Okay.
like in terms of the rooms or what it tells us, what you're seeing from that exhibit.
Yes, what you're seeing is this would be the living room area. That would be same as over here. And then also the front porch / dining area, which would be correlate to this area here. And then this area would be that central hallway, which has access to that living room area here. And on this will also have the placards and some of the scales that were used in the scene to produce the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh images, to be specific.
And Judge, if I may have the light a little bit on for...
Turn up the light just a little bit, please.
Now, there seems to be some, what I can describe as artifacts on that Pharaoh. Can you just explain to the jury what they are so that they can have an understanding of what they are seeing?
Sure. So it looks like when you view this aerial view of the scene, there seems to be just like missing pieces and or fragments of different images. When you're using this 3D scanning software, you have a laser that's bouncing off of various surfaces that were within its view. From there, what can happen is there can be interference of that laser. So it's creating almost like a shadow effect, where if you shine a flashlight on somebody, you can see their shadow behind them. Those fragments and those missing pieces are usually where the laser hasn't been able to reach. With that in mind, so a good example would be this area here. There's actually a roof over the top of this, but that has been since removed to be able to see down to the porch area, but then there's other landscaping here that might have not been hit by that laser, so it doesn't appear there. That's just an example of kind of what you are seeing here on this aerial view.
When you start your scene examination, did you have a specific place where you started, or did you move from outside to inside? Can you explain that to the jury?
Specifically with this scene, I worked with the outbuildings first and then worked inwards to the main residence.
Okay. And why was that?
I was operating under the basis of knowing the details of the case as well as looking to see what could be inconsistent or consistent with the details that were given to us. So if there has been some unknown person upon the property, my thought process is, well, why else would they be on the property? There's a possibility that they might be looking for something to steal, to go through the property itself. So there's a possibility that maybe they've looked at the outbuildings of some sort and looked at the items that are there. If there was something like that, I would expect to see certain signs supporting that type of evidence. But from there, I worked outwards at those outbuildings and then towards the main residence itself.
Okay. Now we'll get back to the outside, but let's start from the inside.
Okay.
On the inside, when you're looking at what gave you a state exhibit 139, and you find Ryan Cooper, do you start an examination of that room to see what's in that room and what the evidence in that room tells you?
What I am doing is that I'm going to be documenting first, foremost, getting my overall photographs of it, as well as getting an idea of what possible items of evidence could be there too. So I'm doing that kind of in tangent with documenting that scene as well.
Okay. So let's talk about the living room examination. What did you do and what did you observe?
First off, I took overall photographs of that area without any type of markers or placards in that scene. Just took photographs of the living room as it is. From there, I will be able to mark what I believe were possible items of evidence using the placards or sticky scales that we have that have little scales on them to designate areas of importance that I believe were important to the details or the investigation of this scene.
Okay. Judge, may we have the TV back?
You may. Are we done with this one then too? For right now?
No, I think we can just have it up. I think we'll have it up.
Okay.
Showing you what's been admitted as State Exhibit 140. Can you tell us what your observations with 140 are?
Say that last part again.
Can you tell us what your observations with 140 are?
Yes, so this is a photograph from the living room from the south side or the southeast corner of the living room, approximately in this area here. From there, it's just a photograph showing the end table as well as the recliner that is there. There's also a wallet and also a tablet that is on this end table here, as well as some medical equipment and tags used for the transport of the decedent here.
So the medical equipment would have come after he was found in that position, correct?
In the recliner position or the
Yes,
on the ground?
in the recliner.
Yes, so this was, for what we were told in the details, is that he had been moved from the recliner, that there had been services there to start dealing with the transport of his body. And so there are some items that they were going to use for that purpose.
What do we see on 141?
It is a photograph of the western side of that south living room from approximately that same position from the previous photo here, just looking at the TV as well as the furniture, and it has a little bit of the access into that main hallway there up on the right side of that photograph.
Again, as you look at that, are you making observations of signs of struggle, of signs of a break-in, or anything to that extent?
Yes, I'm overall taking photographs of that stuff, or of those items that you have listed, but I'm looking to also see, is the furniture in place? Has there been anything like that, like counsel has mentioned, where there could be signs of a struggle or anything where somebody's breaking in? Windows, are they locked or closed? I'm making all those observations in the process of investigating that scene.
Do you see any of that?
Not in this living room.
State Exhibit 142?
Just another photograph from the same position, looking more towards the northwest corner of that living room, as well as the couch, the end table, and the hallway access.
So there was a couch next to a recliner.
Say the couch again?
The couch was next to a recliner.
Yes, the couch was near to the recliner. Yes.
On Exhibit 143, we start seeing what you call placards.
These are placards marking the red stain at placard 2 there, as well as placard 3 marking some footprints in blood.